Welcome to the break room, our remote work therapy sessions where we, as members of GriffinWink Advertising, get together online and pretend like we're in a real break room, and then invite you all to join along with us as we talk about things that interest us in the world of advertising and promotion and digital marketing and technology, and just have a grand old time. I'm Kevin Wade, and joining me today, we got three panelists. You know them, you love them. Brian Wink, Eric Mayhall, and Trace Thomas. What's up, guys?
Hello, hello, hello.
Y'all freezing your butts off?
No,
over there in West Texas.
Hot cup of coffee.
Oh, in your what, bro? Wow, what is that logo there on that cup? Wow,
so attractive.
Wow, that looks like it must be such a great company, especially the Albuquerque office.
I'm telling you,
if it's a logo that cool.
With this company in Albuquerque, it's got to be a coffee mug.
Yeah, exactly. There's so much.
Yeah.
We do have a lot of craft coffee here. We appreciate all our micro roasts and pour overs and whatnot. So it's a good time. Well, what's up, you guys? Y'all freezing your butts off over in Amarillo and Lubbock?
Yeah, it's about 50 degrees here, and it is not looking like it's going to be getting any warmer, which is rough, to say the very least.
That's the other thing about Albuquerque. It's 70 degrees. It's going to be that way for the next week and a half. It's just 70 degrees.
2 minutes ago, I got a freeze warning from the Weather Channel for Kenya.
Oh gosh! Welcome to winter. Welcome to West Texas.
42 here right now.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, the Panhandle is so cold. It's ridiculous.
I'm older than the weather right now.
There are there's some storms coming in too. I know I'm going up to Colorado this weekend, and there's potential for some big snowstorms to blow through there and start dumping the first big fall. So
let's get ski season going. Let's get it going. And it's past Halloween. Let's get the snow falling.
You said there were some storms coming in there for a second. I thought you were talking my dad was going to join the break room today.
Oh man, yeah, right.
Hurricane Randy. I love it. But hey, before we get into like the actual advertising stuff over the last few weeks, wanted to just set something to rest that we were talking about in a chat at the end of last week. And I think Rusty mentioned that this was the kind of conversation that we would have in the old break room. Just sitting around, we got into, and I guess this is a branding thing, right? This is a marketing branding thing. We asked the question: is there a difference between Halloween movies and scary movies? Are all scary movies Halloween movies, or do Halloween movies have to have a Halloween focus? And my stance that I took, because nobody asked me and nobody cared, but I said it anyways, was that a Halloween movie needs to take place during Halloween or reference Halloween as one of its topics. And so I need to know before we get started where you all fall on that and why.
I will say this, Kevin, I agree with you, and which is surprising. But I say that because in our internal communication software we had somebody put up a poll and say, hey, everybody put your favorite Halloween movies. Mm-hmm. And I literally had that exact thought when I read it. I was like, does she mean, is that just like scary movies in general or Halloween movies? And I was like, I don't really know what my favorite like Halloween movie is. And then when I saw the results pour in from everybody else on our socials, I was like, oh, okay, I guess we were just talking scary movies, which is funny. So
yeah, I know. I guess it's for more. Yeah, the results when we put this up as a poll on like our Instagram story, people were leaning towards just scary movies. And my thought there then is that people think that Halloween movies are just movies you watch during Halloween or movies that you associate with the Halloween season, which is very different than like a Christmas movie or something like that. Trace, what do you think?
I'll be honest, I don't have a strong opinion on this. No,
you're on crazy. You have to have a strong.
Yeah,
opinion.
No crazy hot take. I'd probably go more with just a good scary movie. I mean, I'm kind of late to the horror genre. I didn't watch when I was little. They really scared me. Like Ernest Scared Stupid, like terrified me as a child, and that's just a silly kids one. And so I really avoided them for really a long time. Until about 5 or 6 years ago, I watched The Witch, which I haven't seen.
Good movie.
Like, terrified me, but I was like, "This is the greatest thing ever." Black Phillip is terrifying. I love this.
That's a goat for anybody who hasn't seen the movie.
Or the devil. I want to spoilers.
I didn't say it. I was gonna say, geez Louise, blow it up, man.
So since then, I've been trying to catch up, and usually around Halloween is when I I guess it's time I finally watched the Conjuring movies, or last year I watched the Halloween movies for the first, or the first one, the original. So to me, it's just kind of, that's usually the time of year I just kind of like, what are some I haven't seen yet that people are saying, have always said were good.
Brian, I'm assuming you fall in the same camp from how you were responding in that message thread.
I do. I believe that it's about the season, just like holiday movies. It's about the season.
So Braveheart's a Christmas movie in your mind.
Die Hard is.
Die Hard, sorry. Wow.
Yeah, not Braveheart. Die Hard, yeah.
Yeah, Die Hard is. I think, relatively, you're talking about feelings and you're talking about a time of year. I mean, you don't really see a lot of horror movies released throughout the year. You see a lot of them released around this time frame. So
it's all about how it makes you feel. What mindset it puts you in.
Exactly.
Okay, that's fair enough. You're wrong, but I respect your opinion.
I agree with both.
You and I can discuss exactly how wrong I am after this video.
in your performance review, Kevin. Yeah, let's have an official performance review, and we'll discuss exactly how wrong I am. Man. Thanks for indulging me on that, guys. But what we really wanted to talk about, which is I think the biggest story in the tech world over the last few weeks, is Facebook rebranding themselves as Meta or Strange. I don't know. So let's unpack that. Let's unpack the metaverse. And so if you've been living under a rock, we'll give you a little bit of a quick rundown. Facebook. At their annual launch event, there was this big hour-long keynote address where Mark Zuckerberg says, Facebook just has so much else it wants to do beyond social media, and we want to create what they're calling the embodied internet, which they have branded as the metaverse, going off of their official name change, their umbrella company for Facebook, Messenger, Instagram, WhatsApp, Oculus.
It's just the plot of Wreck-It Ralph 2.
Oh, well, I was going to say it's the plot of Ready Player One. Yeah. Everything you were talking about was just Ready Player One. And so the idea is that what Facebook wants to do over the next decade is they want to make every single online interaction exist in this online reality, complete with augmented and virtual reality. It's insane. It all just it reads directly like the first few pages or the first few minutes of Ready Player One, which is this kind of dystopian future where nobody exists in the present anymore, and they're all just living, working, playing, having relationships, waging war in this virtual reality universe. And that's exactly what Mark Zuckerberg went through for an hour. It
sounds like Mark Zuckerberg has spent too much time with Elon Musk.
A little bit, but I mean, it doesn't sound weird coming out of Mark Zuckerberg's mouth because he is so eccentric, and like the same way that some of the stuff Elon Musk says, you're like, that's ridiculous. But when you say it just doesn't sound strange because you are so eccentric. But beyond just saying this is what's going to be, and it's going to be the new way that people interact online and the new way that we really exist in our lives. His big thing was, like we don't want to, like we like, people are already spending all their time on screens. We don't want to take away from the time you spend offline. We just want to make the time you spend online more intentional and communal, and all these buzzwords that in my mind were meant to move all of us away from thinking that Facebook is kind of a faceless corporate entity that just takes all of our privacy information and understands what they're doing and doesn't ever tell any of us or admit to it. I don't know. Eric, I think you read an article that said it very nicely and concisely. Do you remember what that little tagline was?
I forget exactly what it was. I remember we were chatting about that tagline.
It was like the universe. It's the metaverse.
Yeah, Mark Zuckerberg created a universe in which Facebook isn't an evil corporation.
Yeah,
or is attempting to create one, and it just, from a PR standpoint, it confuses me.
Yeah.
Because like, okay, you're trying to build trust. So why would you then just go like, no, I want everybody to put on VR goggles now and come into the reality that I've created. So I'm like, okay, then there's two major issues with that. One is if it's going to be fully communal, what's the biggest issue with Facebook right now? Disinformation and false fake accounts. I don't know about y'all, but I get dozens of friend requests from fake profiles every single day.
Yeah.
And it's obviously very easy to spot. Sometimes you'll like go to the page and you'll see that like a couple of your friends have accepted them and you're like, ooh, like that's sketchy, man. Come on. Like,
yeah.
But at the same time, what's that going to look like in the metaverse when fake profiles are created by businesses to go into the metaverse and try to sell you things in a digital space? And how do you stop that from happening? How do you stop, interactions from taking place? And if the answer is something like a Zoom platform or a shared server that you have to have details to specifically log on to, so kind of like a Zoom crossed with Minecraft almost, where, it's going to come down to needing some level of payment. It's going to be some kind of premium service. So I'm sure just there will be what it looks like. Yeah.
Well, part of the keynote, they talked about commerce existing in the metaverse. They talked about the workspace, the economy of the metaverse. They talked about privacy. They talked, of course, about accountability. And they had this big old long section about 3/4 of the way through about, it's Mark Zuckerberg in a very scripted way, like turning to one of his like key people and saying, well, obviously things like privacy and accountability are going to be hugely important as we develop the metaverse. Will you walk me through this, Mr. Talking Head Bob man? Mm-hmm. I forgot what his name was, and so of course they address it in a very politically correct sort of way. And it's all very much part of just like making a safe communal space where it's not, and they kept saying this over and over. They're like, we are not building the metaverse. We want to just build within the metaverse. It's going to be open source. It's going to be
a lot of hand gestures.
Yeah, a lot of hand gestures, a lot of very metered walking. I was watching his feet as he was like walking through, and he was very much like metering the pace of it. It was so awkward. Mark Zuckerberg is such an awkward human being. Yeah.
How would a human move? Like, it's just like he looks like a lizard that's uncomfortable in a human skin suit. It's like that's how he interacts. That's how he lives his life. That's in
case
memes,
our listeners didn't know what Eric thinks of Mark Zuckerberg, which I don't know if you've been listening. I don't know how you don't know what Eric thinks about Mark Zuckerberg. But yeah, it was so interesting. All of these different, very metered, politically correct moves within this keynote speech. And one thing that I noted as maybe being the most clever move from a political standpoint was that all of what they were talking about was focusing on the hardware and other people contributing to it. And everything they said was very much pushing you to believe that, again, that this is not Facebook space. This is just a space we are creating, and you then inhabit it and make it what you will. And it is facilitated by all of this hardware that we are creating and developing, which gets you to think less about all of the issues that we've been having with the software over the past year. And everything was very, in my mind, and it might have just been my cynicism and that I was already thinking about it from this perspective. But in my mind, the entire presentation was meant to turn your attention towards something idealistic and utopian, and away from anything that has to do with the issues that we've been facing with Facebook.
Yeah. It was fake.
I was just really confused because I've never really watched a keynote thing. Really, I've always just like read the highlights afterwards.
Yeah, right.
But since we were going to do this, I actually watched the entire thing, and I just didn't. Again, since I don't know, but like I know, like when like Disney's like doing one of these and they're like announcing their slate of movies, they like have like at least like summer 2022 or
some time
August
frames around.
Yeah, this is just like sometime in the future. At some point, we're going to have, and I'm like, why are we even talking about this right now if you have no real?
Because they need it. They need to talk about it right now to get us thinking in a different direction. They need to pivot.
Exactly. So I just didn't. I was like, yeah, this is all just like hypothetical maybes. They even use those words a lot.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, I feel like this is a waste of our time until you actually can prove that you can do these things.
Yeah.
Or that they're like on the horizon more than like 5 or 10 years from now.
I do think it would be cool from a remote perspective at some point, but where I see it breaking down again is the amount of hardware you need to access the metaverse, which man, I die a little bit every time I say something like that. But in terms of everybody needing an Oculus Rift or something, it's that's a lot of money. Or those
glasses that they were talking about that would create the Google glasses. Remember the Google glasses that just kind of failed miserably as an experiment? And he's talking about that, you'll be able to just augment your reality through these glasses and come in and out of these realistic and augmented spaces. It's like that. Yeah. We're not even close with that.
It's cool from a perspective of we all work remote. We do the break room. It would be pretty sick. I'm not going to lie. If we all popped on VR goggles, wow. Google on the brain. Goggles, and then sat around a table with each other in the same virtual room and had a discussion with avatars. That'd be neat, but it's I can't really see Brian, your dad, popping on the VR to jump into a meeting, where it's just there would be a breakdown eventually, and then how long before VR tech, whether it's these Facebook mystery goggles that don't yet exist, or Oculus stuff, how long before that's really commonplace? Because it's not regular to have that stuff on hand.
What's crazy though is the stuff he was talking about, some of it you can already do, and yet nobody does it because it just doesn't make sense. The Horizon platform for meetings and work and entertainment. I went on to the basically an earlier version of Horizon with my brother-in-law's Oculus Quest a few months ago, and you can sit in a virtual living room and search for movies on a virtual screen and watch Netflix on a virtual screen in your virtual living room. And and I just sat there and I was literally why? I get it. So let's say I just take my Oculus Quest to an airport. Let's say I'm somewhere else. Let's say, I am traveling, or I am someone that does a lot of life remotely, living in and out of hotels. That could potentially be my escape. It frightens me that I would view that as an actual escape, and that I would ever be in a situation where I would prefer that to actual reality. Because at that point it is just Ready Player One. Its reality is so horrible that I have to escape into a virtual world just so I can watch Netflix. It's very interesting. And so he's talking about creating all these worlds, and you can have a world just as realistic inside your virtual reality, inside the metaverse, as you do outside, and then some. Then I'm thinking, well, then how sad is that going to be if people start preferring that world, which is what happens in all of these dystopian sci-fi novels and movies, is that people start preferring that world. And for as much as you say, oh no, we're not trying to replace reality, we're just trying to make the time we spend with screens more like interactive reality. But it's going to move towards, if it's as realistic as they say they want to make it, it's just going to cause huge problems for society and the existence of person-to-person interaction, which people are probably more primed for when after the pandemic, or kind of with the continuing restrictions and the continuing way we view remote work. What we're doing right now, we're okay with this, meeting up and talking on the screen, because that's kind of the new norm, and it allows us to live in our homes and communicate remotely. Whereas and so people are primed to accept a virtual solution right now. And so Trace, you're saying, why now? Why would they bring this up without anything to really show for it or any sort of timeline? It's because, one, they need it to pivot their to pivot away from the allegations coming against them, and they think that we need this in order to feel like there is kind of a future in this new normal with remote work. And so very well timed, very politically thought out, very politically correct. So that's what I'll say for the whole presentation. So
he was also very humbled over the last year. I don't know if you picked that up. He kept saying words like that. He never said we screwed up. Oh, actually we created a monster. It's just I've been really humbled. It's our solution is this thing that's not what we need fixed. We need you to stop letting hate groups come on here. We need you to take accountability for allowing genocide to happen in another country.
But he's been humbled.
He's been humbled. So we got that note there. So
Brian,
it's all PR, it's all fake. It's just it's sad, where it's working though, because here we are, discussing it, even though we're seeing right through it. I mean, a lot of people are talking about this ridiculous idea, and nobody's talking about, like you said, Trace, the genocides, that are happening in Myanmar or other places, that it's being like, it's helping, these types of hate group and hate sentiment form, allowing disinformation to leak into all forms of, our reality. And it's like, that's the only thing we really wanted from them. And then they were just like, hey, that's just going to keep happening. But now, you remember me's from the Wii in 2007? Do you want to be one of those now? That's what they threw on the table. And I was just like, what?
But that's so interesting that they say, because the what you guys just brought up, all we want is acceptance that you need to be stopping this. All we want is admittance that you're letting it happen. Even that thing that was said in the presentation about, we don't create the metaverse, we just create in the metaverse. If you dig deeper into that one statement and apply it to Facebook, that's them saying, we just created Facebook, we're not at fault for what happens on Facebook. If you just turn back around, that statement can apply just as easily to the future as it can to the past, but they place that in there as kind of a little bit of a statement on that, I think. Brian, you've been uncharacteristically quiet. Do you have any earth-shattering thoughts or opinions?
No, I'm going to sound like the old guy on here with all this stuff, but I think there's a couple of things that are extremely problematic for me with this, and that is, number one, Facebook, they're very smart, right? And so when it looks like they're making this blatantly obvious mistake or misrepresentation or whatever, it's thought out and it's planned, and they have a strategy for it. By sitting there and saying they're not building the metaverse, they're just building within it and everything else. Well, by the amount of times that they've said that, they're starting the conversation that they are the metaverse.
Yeah.
So they're kind of branding the whole thing for them and taking ownership of it, even though they don't, by bringing it up as much as they have.
Yeah.
And so, that's one thing. There's a couple things that really concern me about this. And that is, right now, today's my son's birthday. He's 10, and his thing, we grew up going out and playing with the kids in the neighborhood and riding bikes around multiple neighborhoods and everything else. These kids today, they come home from school and they immediately go in and log into their devices, and then they play games with each other and they talk online and they have this online relationship. And this is really just, to me, what I'm seeing here is that next step for that, because these kids are going to go into a virtual reality with all of their friends, and they're going to forget how to basically function. I think a lot of people will forget how to function in a real reality versus
we're just going to be the
virtual reality.
Blobs from the movie WALL-E. We're just going to be the blobs and floating chairs from WALL-E. Yeah.
This is like some Black Mirror stuff, but
there was a Black Mirror episode. Season 1 had an episode about avatars and virtual reality.
Season 1, 7 years ago. 2. Yeah. But it was very creepy.
The thing about it, though, is Facebook has some very serious problems that they have to address, and I think they're doing the whole look at my left hand so you don't see what my right hand is doing.
Yeah, undoubtedly.
Kind of thing. And they missed their third quarter projections, not by a lot, 500 million, but they missed it.
Pocket change.
And the fourth quarter, they're readdressing the fourth quarter, and they dropped the fourth quarter numbers too. TikTok's taken a big chunk of their members or their followers. They're losing people left and right.
Losing the younger generation continually.
They're using the longer, so they're having to do something. And he even said it in his report here. It says the key to Facebook's future success is adding users in the demographic that is being right now addressed by TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
So they're even sitting there saying, hey, listen, TikTok's killing us, and the younger demographic is who we have to go after in order to do this. And he said, we are retooling our teams to make serving young adults their North Star rather than optimizing for the larger number of older people.
That is just terrifying too, because of the amount of mental health crises that are coming from TikTok right now. Like, it is crazy to like scroll through TikTok, and it's like, especially when you don't have an algorithm or a feed set to you yet, if you just cold download it or just scroll through the site generally, it is insane the stuff that you see on there that's picking up, like, that's getting amplified. It's just like the world's turning into what like a Modern Warfare 2 lobby was on Xbox 360 back in the day, which is like terrifying, you know, like absolutely terrifying.
Well, and you know, Facebook's got some huge antitrust issues coming down the pipe, and they're trying to pivot and readdress and refocus so that they can sneak under the radar, you know, a little bit
the
more.
Whole Google alphabet thing.
Yeah. Google avoided a lot of the antitrust issues because of the way they're structured. This is Facebook trying to restructure to be able to continue to own Messenger, WhatsApp, Instagram, and other services. But, you know, one of the things that he talked about in his reportings call was that they are investing heavily in the metaverse, in the new wave of technology. But it's also, they're going to create 10,000 jobs in Europe next year alone, strictly in the Facebook Reality Labs segment. So
interesting in Europe too, with how much they have a damper on internet security in terms of like sharing information. You know, the GDPR is much more intense than anything we have going in the US.
That could be a PR move for us in the US to be like, oh, they're willing to go somewhere with these sort of stricter crackdowns. So look, see, we're willing to be held accountable. We're creating all these jobs somewhere where we're going to be held accountable. So it's
but
America is also stressful right now for a lot of reasons to operate in.
Yeah. And so, you know, I think the big issues that are going to have to be addressed, because this is who they are going after, is child safety. You know, how do you keep the kids safe? Because that's going to be, you are opening Pandora's box when you go to this metaverse thing. And I think that's across the board. And what impact is this going to have on small businesses? Think about it. If you can now sit in your living room and have a beer and throw your Oculus goggles on and go and sit at the stadium of the Kansas City Chiefs game, or go to another bar that is all Kansas City Chiefs fans or Bronco fans, whoever it might be, you're now eliminating the need to go to sports bars, because you can have that same experience in your living room with cheaper beer and snacks that are cheaper, and you're still going to get that camaraderie that you get when you go to a sports bar, because they're getting these kids younger. You know, if you do it to me, I'm going to go, yeah, that's cool.
You'd be like, this isn't even close. Yeah.
There's just so many ethical implications that come with it. You know, I'm just thinking of the 12-year-old logging in and making a 45-year-old profile. And then what happens? You know, it's like,
or the other way around.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, which
is most importantly, the other way around.
Yeah.
But think about where they're going with this too. Put the Facebook hat on for a second. Who are the big giants that they're really competing with?
Yeah.
Google
TikTok.
and Amazon.
Oh yeah, the giants.
From like,
right?
Okay, yeah.
So now you can throw your Oculus goggles on and go on a shopping experience. And now Facebook's Amazon.
Yeah. And
Facebook, you know, you can purchase them and they'll send them out of their Amazon-like distribution center or whatever. So they're going to change small business forever with this new direction. And if you are a small business, how do you capitalize on it? I mean, businesses are still trying to figure out how to capitalize on TikTok.
Yeah. Or capitalize in the virtual space. Businesses are still reeling almost 2 years later to figure out what the exact right mix of e-commerce and in-store is.
But then you look at the larger implications of what will e-commerce become, when we're literally talking strictly metaverse, to where NFTs start to get involved and you're actively interacting, transacting just digital goods with real world money. Like, there's been video games where that happens. Like EVE Online has sold like those big spaceships to people with offsite money. But you start to look at it from the metaverse and it's like people buying online sneakers, that you can only get 500 of or something, that are only existing in the metaverse, so your character could wear them. And it's like, that sounds crazy, but it's a really strong possibility. I mean, that's already taking place in parts of the metaverse, and it'll continue to.
Even
that's
with
what skins are in video games.
Yeah, when you purchase skins. But like, I think even in the keynote, they showed a little bit of that when, Mark Zuckerberg, they were doing their like demo of like, this is what could possibly be in the next 5 to 20 years, like that thing. It was like Mark Zuckerberg in the metaverse, and then he gets called by a friend who's in the real world who says, check out this new digital street art that got posted. And that real world person points her glasses at the wall and clicks a button, and very likely, an NFT, purchase, like an artwork with an NFT associated with it, pops up out of the wall and goes straight to Mark Zuckerberg's room where he can see it for himself. But then it starts to fade away. And then the only reason it comes back up is because they tipped the artist. And so the artwork comes back into existence again. And like,
God, that's annoying.
That whole idea. So that whole, even that like 30-second, just vision that they had was redefining what they believe commerce is going to be if they can turn this into what they want it to be. So that's something to where, regardless of what you think about it, artists, creators, developers, retailers, musicians. John Baptiste was the big music, person in their keynote. It's all going to have to change. You're going to have to pivot again, the same way that we pivoted, that music and commerce and everything pivoted with the advent of social media. It's all going to have to pivot again to accommodate the things that you can do within a virtual reality universe. It's weird. So it's like, we're all going to, if this happens the way that they're saying it'll happen. And I know that we're saying like, a lot of this is a publicity stunt to pivot attention away from other stuff. But if it does happen the way that they brought it about in their kind of musings and dreamings in that keynote speech, the implications are going to be huge for everybody, whether you use it or not. So it's,
if it's interesting, and I think Brian brought up the most interesting point, which is, again, like, Facebook is not the metaverse. They are branding themselves as Meta because they're investing, planning on.
Who do they think they are? Ron Artest?
Right, exactly. Meta world peace. So it's funny to see that they are trying to brand themselves and closely associate themselves with this concept that they're obviously, betting everything on being the next big thing. But it's within that metaverse, which is literally just the internet visualized through augmented reality, or, in full terms at some point, like artificial reality.
Yeah.
So there's different levels to the metaverse, A, and B, it's Facebook wants to become, whether it be like the PayPal or, the Zapier, they want to be the people in the metaverse that nothing gets done in the metaverse without Facebook getting a cut of it.
They want to broker the whole experience.
Yeah, you can create yourself as a model to where you get used continually, or your services, whatever you're offering, gets used. And then it becomes streamlined to where it can't exist without some level of Facebook being involved, because they were the early creators in so much of the framework of what we'll become to know as the metaverse.
And who does that on the internet today?
Oh, Google. I mean, Google. It is a big one. Amazon definitely is playing parts to it now as well, but it's interesting.
90 something percent of every internet activity starts on Google.
So I wonder
they're extending past what they just offered before. I ordered food, like, entirely the transaction from picking on the menu items to pressing send to paying through a Google My Business yesterday. Speaking of which, Costa Mesa Tacos on 114th in Lubbock. Excellent stuff, man. It's like a Chipotle, but better.
So let me ask you this question then.
Blew my mind.
If Facebook's trying to shift everybody to this metaverse, then does Google go after the metaverse, or does Google try to keep everybody in the internet? Because Google owns the internet. So if you transition to the metaverse, what impact is that going to have on Google?
That's what I was about to ask you, because if the metaverse isn't owned by Google, it's already a thing that's been worked on beyond just Facebook. We just don't know yet. Maybe Google's already working on it. Like maybe they've already been doing it too. They just haven't had their press conference yet.
So there's no way Google's sitting there after the report from Facebook going, oh crap, get somebody on this metaverse now. Make some calls.
See, the tricky thing is like Facebook is definitely using this as a PR stunt. You know, I think they just wanted to change their name because literally at the end of the day, like that will have a very positive impact for them over the next few years as people start to forget Facebook. As crazy as that sounds, it'll work. And doing that and then shifting and pivoting to this thing that will eventually, you know, come into fruition is one side of it. But I mean, like, you know, what we were saying, like this metaverse stuff has been tried several times before, whether it be with Snapchat goggles or the Google Glass. And, you know, the technology was never quite there. Mm-hmm. I have played
Amazon
VR
has glasses
video
now
games.
too.
Yeah, exactly. I've played VR video games. I've used Oculus Rifts. You know, it's fun. It's pretty damn good too. But like, again, it's just not there to the level of where your average day person would jump in there. And I don't know if it'll be there in the next 10 years, even, especially with what we're seeing with supply chain shortages. We're not going to catch up technology wise for the pace that we were moving the last 2 decades for probably another 10 years until the world actually does recover from what we just went through.
Yeah. Man, I will say though, the best when I was on my brother-in-law's quest, the first virtual reality experience that I thought, okay, this seems like it honestly is breaking some sort of new ground as far as the virtual space. I played those Vader Unleashed or Vader, and
Isaac loves that game.
That game is unbelievable because like you look around and like when you're climbing upside, you know, spoiler alert, but there's a point where you're climbing outside, like you're climbing 1,000 feet up on the outside of this building, and I looked down and I got sick to my stomach. Like something about the way that they did the depth perception in that virtual reality coding made me for a few minutes feel like I was in a physical space, and it kind of freaked me out that like they could do that.
So they have a rock climbing one too, Kevin.
Does that do that too?
Yeah, Chelsea. There's a place here in Amarillo called the Vault, and they've got VR gaming there, and we take Isaac there every so often, and we all play and everything else. But Chelsea got a little motion sickness to it. And she was playing something with like a roller coaster or something like that, but it made her, and the guy goes, "We have a chair over here if you'd like to sit down." There's quite a few people that have to sit down during VR sessions.
Oh, yeah.
But
it's the Disney rides. That's what they are now. If you go to
the Harry Potter ride in Universal, it does that.
You're just in a seat that spins around to different screens that show you a movie,
which is pretty cool. Like that Spider-Man at Universal, where you actually feel like you're being dropped and then caught by a web, and it's really surreal feeling. But you never leave your chair, like you're just sitting there.
So we're starting to see that with just movie theaters. Even they're going 4D, where you could go see Dune, and I don't think they would like throw sand at you yet, but they would definitely like use wind. They would use wind effects still. Like when you would get on top of a dune, they'd like let a gust go, which is like pretty cool. That you're actually that level of interaction with media is becoming commonplace.
Or if you think about it from just a single sensory experience, what Apple just started doing with their, you have mono audio, stereo audio, and now you have spatial audio, which is something Apple's trying out, and it's a remixing.
I love spatial audio.
It's interesting, isn't it? It's a remixing of all of the audio to make you feel like you're living in a space where like the bass drum is in the back of your head and the guitar's on your, like it's pretty insane. But you can see just little glimmers of what they're going for here, turning every single media experience into as much of a sensory experience experiences you can to try and create a feeling that you are doing more than you actually are. And so the elements are there. You're right. It's not going to get put together for years and years and years, but you see these little glimmers of brilliance with things like what we just started talking about that eventually may turn into, it may all come together to equal more than the sum of their parts.
Yeah.
So what does this mean moving forward for us? I mean, for advertising agencies and everything else. I mean, right now, you talk about having to build websites. Are you going to have to build online virtual stores?
Yeah, we're gonna have to code in Horizon, or in whatever the next version of that is. We're going to have to code virtual spaces for people to be and for people to sell. Either that, or we're just going to be able to just inject things into people's brains through suggestive imagery, and like we'll just 1984 it. Yeah,
we're gonna start to see a merging of. Okay, here's a question: what's the biggest entertainment industry in the world? What would you guys guess?
Porn.
Video games.
Video games. Thank you, Trace. Entertainment, like viewable media, you are correct, Brian. But in terms of any media, yeah, it is video games, and that's what we're going to start to see, which is like the level of skill that's taken to code video games is unbelievable now, to the point of when Notre Dame burned down, they relied on an Assassin's Creed mock-up of Notre Dame from the game to rebuild it. So we're going to start to see a lot more of these game architects and designers, move into the metaverse. And it poses the question of, it's like, how long before the metaverse is built on like the Unreal Engine, and you literally are living your fantasy world through it. I've played some VR games, probably most notably the Resident Evil 7, which is like, you're in a VR game that you feel like you are literally living through a Texas Chainsaw Massacre type experience. It was terrifying. I mean, I played it alone in my house and literally like screamed and like threw the controllers at points. It was so real, and it's like interesting of when we'll see the metaverse stop being what it looked like in Mark Zuckerberg's keynote and start looking like that, and it's like, that's when it'll get really weird.
That's what,
not necessarily horror, but just very realistic.
So Eric, you know what I'm about to ask. Is it possible for us to have a metaverse conference room by the next time we do the break room?
Ooh.
You know what? Probably.
Yeah.
And will anybody tune in?
Does anybody tune in now?
Let's check the restream.
You can currently have a Zoom meeting inside a Horizon built conference room. We would just all need Oculus Quests. And I don't know if it's out of beta at this point, but we would just need Oculus Quest headsets, and we would need to connect the Horizon room to our Zoom account, and we could do this in Horizon on our headsets, on our virtual reality headsets.
So Kevin, I'm going to need you to put in a request. I'm going to need you to put in a request to Chelsea for approval to buy everybody Oculus glasses or Oculus Quests.
I mean, I'm down. Cool. I'm totally down.
It's only like $800. And then we could all get Resident Evil 4 too.
Well, but here's the thing. Here's the thing. I can buy everybody Oculus Quests as long as we don't have to have real offices to go into. Like, that's my
right. Exactly.
No, see, but that's what scares me. It's everyone's really going to say, yeah. And like the thing that they kept saying in the keynote was just like, think of all the time you'll save in commuting. Think about, and that's when they did like, well, this was the one that like that really got me. I like laughed out loud when he was just like, you know what? If you are someone who travels and the metaverse means that you take one less plane flight a year because you're doing work virtually, that is the best thing that you could possibly do from an environmental standpoint. And that they made it like, if you continue to work in a physical space, if you do not join the metaverse, you are actually a detriment to our efforts to find environmental solutions.
Which is actually
he's not wrong.
environmental issue.
Yeah.
He's not wrong, but the airline industry just put a big old target on Mark Zuckerberg's back.
From that one
More
statement.
than that, it's just like, dude, just like, that's fine. Like, you can guilt people into taking a plane ride a year, or you could fix the genocidal tendencies of your social media platform.
No,
Again,
Eric,
it's like,
pivot,
whatever.
Pivot.
Yeah, pivot.
I think my thing is like y'all talking, jokingly, like we should all buy Oculus headsets, but is the value really that much better than what we're doing right now? That's my
No.
He's like, well, what we're doing right now. No.
Yeah. So I'm like, this costs us absolutely. I think I didn't pay for my Zoom account. I don't think so.
What? No.
And, yeah. So I mean, everything. I'm like, I'm not paying for. I mean, I paid for these nice headphones. That's about it.
It's the free Zoom works fine.
Yeah. So why? And that goes with the rest of it. I'm like, even the shopping, like Amazon already, like it's pretty intuitive. So why would I need to buy a device that makes me walk into a virtual store?
Yeah.
The only thing I can see is maybe like pick it up and look at it. But even then, half the stuff when you're shopping now has a 3D version that you can look at anyway. So to me, it just seems like this is beyond the PR point, but just like if this actually did become a thing, it seems like a waste of money and time.
Here's why it's going to work, though, Trace, is because of that mindset right there. Because we, as older people, even though you guys are a lot younger than I am, are sitting there going, what is the point of this? And all these teenagers and young kids are going, ooh, they don't like it. I'm doing that.
Give it to me.
I'm buying that.
So then my question for you, Brian, is as the one of us here that straddles generations, you're right at that gap after or before millennial. I
literally am the last year, years,
the final year of the is it what comes before us? The boomers, Gen Xers,
Gen X,
Gen Xers.
Yeah,
I got a couple different ones before boomers.
Yeah.
Sorry, but yeah, Gen X is the last year. The Gen Xers. Would you, in 10 years, if this came into a reality, would you join it?
I would, and here's why. Because Isaac will be there, and he's already doing the whole. He has it stuck in his mind that we don't understand technology and we don't understand the internet.
Yeah.
And Chelsea's like, do you really know what I do every day? I'm like,
I'm manipulating you right now.
Of all of your friends, I'm like, of all of your friends' parents and everything else, we're probably the most in tune with what's going on right now.
I was literally on the internet this afternoon talking about this.
So, but and he does every now and then. He's we'll say something. He's like, that's not how it works. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly how it works. And he's like, no, it's not. You don't know. And I swear to God, guys, he does this. He goes, let's call Eric or let's call Kevin. They'll tell you. And I'm like, they will tell you exactly what I just told you. So we don't need to waste their time.
Eric's the one who told me this 3 hours ago.
And the thing is Isaac's probably right too. And I'm like, who?
But he does. He's like, let's ask somebody who's a little younger than you. Wow. And who knows this better than you do. And I'm like,
no, it's okay. It's happened to me already. I work at an escape room sometimes, and there's younger people that work there, and they were laughing, and they were like, oh, we found you on Instagram. We didn't expect you to be on social media. And I was like, what? They were like, you're just old. And I was just like, I'm 29. I was like, yeah, I have an Instagram. I was like, what? I was like, how old are you guys? They're like 20. I was like, that's a rough pill to swallow. I was like, I think that means you're more disconnected than I am, to be honest. But still, it's just like crazy that like even at my age, people are like, yeah, you wouldn't have an Instagram. And I'm like, what?
Yeah. My niece was saying something about TikTok, and I was like, and I showed her my TikTok, and she was like, whoa, wait, you have TikTok? And I'm like,
instantly made TikTok uncool.
I know. I even have a MySpace too. Look that one up.
Oh my gosh.
That's going to come back. Justin Timberlake is going to bring that back. I'm convinced.
You're relying on Justin.
Want to be the first thing he brought back.
It's right. Oh wow, that was great. That was awesome. I think we should just wrap up the show.
Yeah, that's it right there.
Way to go, Trace.
You're not topping that, Trace.
Thank you all.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, I think honestly that I think that is a good place to wrap it up. I think that this is just going to keep evolving, and we're just going to have to keep following it. I mean, I think we should have more conversations as we move forward with even with this and just with what we're doing, and really keep an eye on what's popping up as the next evolution of it. All right, so the metaverse still doesn't exist yet, but what's happening in virtual reality that small businesses and agencies can be taking advantage of? How is the trends around e-commerce, being affected by what's going on? So it's all interesting and it's all unfolding, but I'm glad we got to have a conversation here about it.
And I will say the one thing he never brought up was advertising. How is the advertising going to be done in the middle? He never talks about it once.
Yep, that's true.
I'm just going to be so pissed off if I'm playing a video game in the metaverse and the main character turns to me and is like, you know what would be great right now? An ice cold Pepsi. And I'm just like, just be like, there goes my happy place, We'll see what happens.
Or they're going to start wearing T-shirts and everything else with brand names on them. And...
No, see, it's going to be.
We need to get to the next Taco Bell for the next clue.
It's going to be up to heroes like Wendy's to make sure that doesn't happen. It's going to be Wendy's needs to take charge of advertising in the metaverse. Because I feel like they would do it. They'd be the only ones that I would trust to do it cleverly. Cleverly. Weird word. Cleverly. Anyway,
you got it.
Well, thanks for joining us, guys. Oh, what's up, Brian?
I'll leave it there. Nope, I'll leave it there.
Well, thanks everybody for joining us. The break room is every other Wednesday now at 2 p.m. and each Wednesday that there is not a break room, we'll be posting a new Life of the Brand. Life of the Brand is our shorter form podcast through GriffinWink. The hosts are usually Brian and I, and Eric comes on when we really need someone to sound smart. But it's similar to what we talk about here, but it's more focused, more action oriented, and it lives first and foremost wherever you listen to podcasts. We do have the break room post produced wherever you listen to podcasts as well. But again, the live stream is on YouTube and Facebook every other Wednesday. So we hope to see you guys back here in 2 weeks. And thanks for joining us today.